ideas and my plans, so I want to thank all of the painting volunteers, everyone who works for Railroad Street, and Taylor Sloanaker for their hard work. It means more to me than you'll ever know, and I won't forget your kindness and enthusiasm. When I first thought of creating a mural, I had no idea what it would eventually become, so I worked with the incredible artists Mika, Antonia Cookwright, Lana Knoll, and Sarah Wohl to create an image of harmony and peace. To speak frankly, at the early stages of planning this project in June, all I really felt was fury. I felt so much longing for the people who were out protesting in the streets daily. They were not just shaking things up, but taking up space. And as we can see now, there doesn't seem to be an end in sight for these peaceful demonstrations. That's when I realized that I can use my anger to do good in my own hometown. I know many people in this town are relieved that we are not one of the towns being ripped apart by racial tensions, but that doesn't mean we do not have those same problems right here. It would be beyond ignorant of us to believe that our liberal bubble is completely supportive of people of color. Great Barrington, as with other towns in the Berkshires, is extremely white. What makes me confused is why it has always stayed this way. How can we call ourselves a progressive liberal town if we haven't faced the issues within our own community? I want to name a few problems that we as a town need to fix, and I know there are people with positions of power in this crowd today that can deal with these problems immediately. We do not have nearly enough affordable housing. We do not have nearly enough affordable health care for substance abuse recovery in this area, and we couldn't even reallocate $200,000 of the $1.7 million police department budget. These are just 3 examples of what needs attention before we can congratulate ourselves. But today, I hope this mural motivates you all to resist the everyday comforts of our beautiful little town and to mobilize. We wanted this mural to be a call to action, which is why we chose Alua Toyin Salau to be the leading voice. Alua Toyin Salau was a powerful 19-year-old activist from Florida. She was out in the streets protesting police brutality and fighting for her own civil rights, for my civil rights. She died at the neglect of police officers in Tallahassee, Florida, after she reported a sexual assault. Her voice was silenced because she was a strong, outspoken Black woman and a natural leader. And we chose to have Black kids holding hands and playing because that is our goal that we need to work towards. The protests have shown us how much noise and direct action can do. Action can come in many different forms, so I ask everyone here to find your own form of activism, whether that is by becoming a member of the NAACP or volunteering for the polls and getting young people to vote. Whatever it may be, believe me when I say that it will make a difference. I hope to see more projects like this in Great Barrington and all the neighboring towns. Thank you again so much. Branch of the NAACP to speak.
Let's give Doreen another hand because she surely deserves it. I am so inspired and admire the young voices that are now coming out and coming up to the plate and saying, it's time to hear me. I have something to say. So this is really wonderful, and what I thought I would do this afternoon is I'm going to play a video. This video was done by Dr. Whitney Battle Baptiste, and it explains the Black Lives Movement, how it got started, what it represents. And it was so inspiring to me when I listened to it. I said, everybody's got to hear this video so that we all have a clearer understanding of what it is we're talking about. We often say, the counter to Black Lives Matter is all lives matter. Well, any idiot knows that. But we also know through our history and our present time, black lives have never mattered. Because if they did, you wouldn't have owned them. So they never mattered. They were never considered human. This is why Black Lives Matter. And I hope I'm going to be able to do this correctly. Of course, I waited till I was 75 to get an iPhone. I'm as challenged with this as I was with my Android, but even more so. But I'm going to give it a go. Maybe I'm not.
Where is it, Dennis? Is it on YouTube?
Yes. Maybe you can find it for me. Told you. A little challenge. It's on YouTube.
We can identify.
As Doreen mentioned, it's important that we continue to use our voices. When you hear something, you have to say something. To be silent is no more acceptable. If things are going to change, we all have to take our ownership of this movement and be willing to change and not be fearful of change. Because when everyone does better, we all do better. And what affects one affects all of us. We talk about the beautiful Berkshires, and yes, it is beautiful, and there's absolutely no doubt about it. But we also know within beauty there is also a level of ugliness. And unfortunately, we are no different here in the Berkshires. You've seen articles lately, things happening up in North County, where someone who really needs, is a little challenge, considered that Black Lives Movement was a terrorist organization. Anytime we hear that kind of rhetoric, we've got to come out and really dispel that kind of ignorance. So I encourage everyone.
And I am a professor of anthropology in the Department of Anthropology at UMass Amherst. I am also the director of the W.E.B. Du Bois Center at UMass Amherst. Today I want to talk to you about the Black Lives Matter movement. Where did it come from? Why was it so powerful? How did it last? And what does it mean today? Black Lives Matter was born from struggle, but also from sadness and grief. The Black Lives Matter movement was born in 2013 after the acquittal of George Zimmerman, the man who pulled the trigger that killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. murder in Sanford, Florida affected a nation. It affected many of us who understood the implications of police brutality, but did not understand how this could continue to happen over and over again. Black Lives Matter was born from a letter that Alicia Garza, one of the co-founders, wrote, that she called a love letter to Black people. And at the end of that letter, the words, "Our Black Lives Matter." Her good friend and also organizer, Patrice Cullors, decided to hashtag that. And with the help of Opal Tometi, all three Black women organizers in their different places came together to create a movement that would be very local in structure, with no single head, no single spokesperson. This would be a movement that recognized and understood the unique experiences of Black people who are suffering from anti-Black racism, including Black, Indigenous, and people of color from the LGBTQ community, especially in light of the violence against trans Black women and the murders that completely go ignored by our media. Black Lives Matter is strong and is able to be sustained because it is based on local needs. Each chapter is located in a city with organizers who understand the needs of that community. This is why, after the murder of Mike Brown, the Ferguson chapter of Black Lives Matter was able to come directly to aid and begin the protests and to begin the pressure on the folks in Missouri, especially the police. This is what happened in Baltimore after the murder of Freddie Gray in the back of a police van in Baltimore. Yet, right now, I think there's a moment in which we need to acknowledge all of us are a little stressed. We've been quarantined, we've been at home, perhaps we've been reading more, perhaps we've been watching more news, perhaps we've been afraid of the way in which COVID will affect our futures. And in this moment, we have the murders of Breonna Taylor in her own bed. We have the murder of Rayshon Brooks, Ahmaud Arbery, both in Georgia, and then 8 minutes and 46 seconds in which we saw the life leave the body of George Floyd. It's not just about George Floyd, it's about the fact that we were all in place when this happened. Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives have always been present. Well, at least since 2013. What is happening now is that people are beginning to realize what the definition of anti-Black racism is. Anti-Black racism is about the disproportionately affected folks that are victim to the carceral state, low economics, education. All of these things have impacted all of us as a nation. And Black Lives Matter and the movement for Black Lives have all been a part. But now and today, because we are still, is why we understand that this is a different moment and that all Black Lives Matter. Thank you.
There are times that we realize that we don't have to speak and recognize our powerful voice. And Whitney Battle Baptiste is definitely that powerful voice. She's my friend, my colleague with the Clinton Church Restoration Project, and just a truly dedicated activist and powerful Black woman. Her words are so solid and strong. This mural is a story. And when you walk up and you look at that mural, try and read the story that's there. Imagine in your own mind. Close your eyes. I love the fact that it's about the youth, because those are the lives that are in danger. Those are the lives that, as a parent, I always had to worry about. My two sons. I mean, as big as he is, he becomes even more of a threat. Because it isn't just this that's the threat. This is the weapon that unfortunately some police officers see and fear. This is the weapon that causes them to shoot without impunity. This is the weapon. It's time that we all realize skin color is not a weapon. And it shouldn't be treated as a weapon. There's no need for you to cross the street because you're out of fear of passing me. There's no need to clench your purse when I step on the elevator. I'm probably should be more concerned about you than you are about me, believe me. So it's really important. This move is important. This move does have some sustainability to it, because never have I seen global response to injustice. And this is why it's not going to go away. And as Whitney said, the Black Lives did not have a leader. And this is why it is so easy for every community to have their own chapter. Tomorrow night, I am happy to announce that in partnership with Williams College, the NAACP, and ROPE, which is the Rites of Passage for Women, run by Shirley Edgerton, will be hosting a Zoom with Hawk Newsom, the president of Black Lives Matter chapter in New York. And the first hour will be just the youth. And then they're going to, although we will be able to go on and listen, we're asking that all adults just keep your mouths shut. It's not about you. I have had the privilege of tuning into different Zooms that our young community have been doing since the pandemic. And I am so impressed with their knowledge, their intelligence, their ability to really voice their feelings. At that age, I didn't even know what oppression was, or depression. But to have these kids identify it and then talk about the tools that they themselves develop to deal with it. We can learn so much, adults. We can learn so much just by shutting up and listening. And if you're offended by that, that's what my job is. I am the offender. Okay? I am the one that is going to tell you whether you like it or not, because somebody's got to say it. And again, I want to thank, where is she? This is the truth, the light and the way. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to move the agenda in our community. And this is why this young lady, along with so many other, is Krista or Christina here? I'm trying to. Anyway, she was the young lady that arranged the last standout here in Great Barrington. Another powerful young voice. So kudos to Great Barrington and your support of these young people. You're really on the cutting edge here in South County. Thank you.
I would now like to introduce Taylor Slonecker, who has helped me so much throughout this whole project. She has made sign-up sheets, she's organized volunteers, she's helped me paint, so I really couldn't have done this without Taylor.
Yes, Taylor.
Hello. Thank you so much for coming out to the unveiling of this mural today. My name is Taylor Slonecker, and I'm a 2019 graduate of Monument Mountain Regional High School. I would like to thank Dory Nuduki again for creating this beautiful project and Railroad Street Youth Project for supporting us for these past 2 months. I would also like to thank the artists for this beautiful display of joy, solidarity, and power. I got involved in this project because I wanted to do more for the Black Lives Matter movement. I felt useless sitting at home watching the protests across the country ramp up in May and June. This project gave me something to put this passion into. I hope that everyone in this community finds some sort of avenue of social justice and the Black Lives Matter movement to also put their passion into. I hope white people in this community see this mural as a reminder to us that we still have work to do. We still have to keep fighting for legislature that protects Black Americans. We have to have difficult conversations with our friends, family, and coworkers about the racism that exists in our country. We cannot ignore it any longer, and we cannot shy away from it, even if it's uncomfortable to uncover. We need to have dialogues and conversation about racism in healthcare, in the incarceration system, in the education system, and in our culture as Americans. We must take action, and we must educate ourselves to keep this movement going. Thank you so much for coming out today, and next up, Zufan Bizano is going to speak.
Thank you so much for coming here. First, I want to say thank you to Dory and Taylor and the rest of Railroad Street Youth Project for making this project possible. The mural project is yet another example of what can happen when youth voices are heard and accepted in this community. It wasn't that long ago that me, Sophie Schroen, Ari Cameroon, and Massimo Mongardo, with the unconditional support of the Railroad Street community, had honored Great Barrington's very own legend and hero, W.E.B. Du Bois, with a mural of its own. If you do not know, it is currently hanging up by the Dola's Pizzeria by the corner. However, the Du Bois mural project was proven to be very tricky, not only because of the roadblocks presented by certain community employers who insisted on editing some details, but also because of the frustration we felt with the lack of knowledge we had about the history and legacy of W.B. Du Bois and the NAACP. How is it members of the Great Barrington community not know that a brilliant Renaissance man who spearheaded the civil rights movement had also grown up on the very streets that we walked? It is up to us as youth, as elders, and people of all backgrounds and races to educate ourselves on the legends and heroes that transformed this country today. It is important especially to educate ourselves, especially when school curriculums and history books are catered to the white population. Books written by white men and women who write about discovering America as if natives have not lived here for thousands of years, who write about slavery as if it's a minor infraction on their parts of their white forefathers, who write about the civil rights movement as if it ended racism for good. Where is W. Du Bois in the textbooks? Where is Angela Davis in the textbooks? Where is Huey Newton? Where is James Baldwin? Where is Kimberly Crenshaw in the textbooks? In the media? Where are all the radical black, gay, trans, and LGBTQ intellectuals in these textbooks, media, movies, and education systems? And I don't mean 3 paragraphs on 1 page. I'm talking about entire curriculums, course, and talks about dedicating to teaching and reteaching our youth, especially youth of color, about our history. Breaking news of white police officers shooting unarmed men and women should not be the only gateway to hearing about the Black American experience. Mass incarceration, racial profiling, aggressive stereotyping, and fear of persecution by any white individual should not define the Black American experience. Right now, right here, we are embracing Blackness. Today we are embracing the life of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Oluwatoya Salu, and countless others who have lost their lives for simply living in a country where their skin color is a crime. And I have a short story here for you all, and maybe you've heard it. There was 2 events that took place that I've heard of. The first took place in Sheffield, where a Black Lives Matter sign was defaced by a perpetrator a couple of weeks ago. The second took place last week, where Black Lives Matter sign was painted on the hill of Monument Mountain Regional High School. A day after that, a small white sheet was put up there as an attempt to cover it, to cover the 3 letters BLM. The sheet was removed. The next day, an individual with a lawnmower mowed over the sign at its lowest setting as an attempt to deface it. Later that day, somebody had painted over the BLM sign and changed the L to an E and the M to an N to spell out Ben. I do not know who painted the sign, and I do not know who attempted to deface it, but it is gut-wrenching to have seen and heard about it. My fellow friends, brothers, and sisters, I have to tell you a truth that might sting a little. The bubble of the small, affluent white town does not protect us from racism, ignorance, and hate. The fight for radical change and dismantling racist and patriarchal systems is not and should not be happening only in big cities. A famous quote from Gil Scott Hearn says, "The revolution will not be televised." This means you have to be willing to educate yourself and willing to stand up for injustices, small or large. The revolution starts in your mind. Let's continue to fight for representation. Sorry. Let's continue to fight to have meaningful and uncomfortable conversations about race. Let's continue to fight to identify and prosecute police brutality. Let's continue to fight to educate ourselves about the people, our people, that are not mentioned in the textbooks. And most importantly, let's continue to fight to remember and honor the many Black men and women, trans and LGBTQ individuals who have lost their lives for simply living in a racist society. This is not a moment, this is a movement. Thank you. Don't forget to vote November 3rd.
Thank you so much for everyone who spoke. It was beautiful and needed to be heard. So now I want to welcome Michael Brown. It's going to take a few minutes to set up his situation, but he's going to be performing and closing us out. So thank you so much.